Hey guys, I'm going to do a brain dump on everything I've kind of gathered from Twin Peaks: The Return, and watching different YouTube videos and reading some things and trying to gather my thoughts together. A couple original thoughts, but not much. But mainly piecing together a lot of things. I think a lot of people have come up with some great stuff, but I'm trying to piece it all together, or as much as together as I can. And maybe this will be a continuing process because there's so much there. I wanted to give a shout out to people who I've been watching all along. They've just been doing an amazing job. The Idle Thumbs folks, Pete Peppers, Wow Lunch Wow, Super Jacob. I think it's PCG. I didn't check this. It may be PGC. The Unraveled dude. He's always interesting. The GameSpot Universe guys, who are inventive and funny, and the 1-3 blog um, for the real world theory, which I happen to think is, for the most part, accurate. Um, here's what. First of all, I want to say that, like, if you watch Lynch movies, you should never be expecting um, plot points to be completely resolved. It's just not going to happen. That's not the whole idea of what's going on. Not what he's trying to get at. It's not always clear what he's trying to get at, but usually, and I'll also credit a great book called Beautiful Dark by Olson is the last name. I can't remember his first name. Um, about Lynch. Reading that book really helped me understand that Lynch is always talking about things in the real world, real problems, real psychological struggles. Now he uses surrealism and dream logic and all this stuff to explore these themes, but they're always rooted in real things. It's not weird for weird's sake. Um, so that's a clue that we should be trying to explore what might be um, at the heart of it. And I'm not sure I've entirely gotten to it. I think, for instance, in Fire Walk with Me, he made this clearer with Laura Palmer. That a lot of the manifestation of Bob and the things with her mother, that this was Laura's way of dealing with, or this was all representative of a struggle of a girl, a young girl being molested by her father, like that reality. And he drives it home, and I think that's that reality was too much, I think, for a lot of people, and they turned away from the movie. But to me, it's one of his strongest films because it's one of his most, you know, heartfelt in a way, and I think as time has gone on, he's gotten a little more abstract, but these are the themes that he's exploring. He's exploring like internal struggles within people. So we should be looking at things like that, not what happened to this character and who was Billy and who was this. Probably not that important. Um, so I got a bunch of thoughts down here, but I think where should I start? I think the thing I want to first sort of start with is the idea of the lodges. That the lodges. Let me back up. We'll go through quickly 1-3 blogs real world theory. That his idea is, I think it's a he, but their idea is that there's separate realities that exist. There's the Twin Peaks universe. There's the Lodge universe, which shoots off from Twin Peaks. And then there's the real world, our world. And that Twin Peaks has dealt, the Return has dealt with all three of these places, and that maybe they run in parallel. I'm sort of adding some of my thoughts to this too, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this really appeals to me because especially this sort of it makes me think David Lynch would be concerned about the cross section of all these worlds, different sort of dream states, real concrete problems, where we go to escape them, how we idealize them, how we idealize the world, how we rationalize the world, all that kind of stuff. I think that's what we're dealing with here. We're still dealing with Laura Palmer and her problem with her family, and we're also dealing with Cooper and his issues. I hate the word issues, but I'll use it because I can't think of a better one. So the lodges, to me, represent some sort of limbo state, a place of unresolved problems and conflicts, where things fester until they can be resolved. And you can get there, either through, live people can get there and be stuck. But when we say they're stuck spiritually. Remember when Hawk says that, I don't know, it was season 2 or 1, but that if you enter this place, the lodge, you have to be like spiritually ready to enter. If you're going to face your demons, you have to be as brave and as you have to be spiritually complete, is what he's saying. And that's what a lot of this is about. Cooper's gone in and he was not ready, and he got stuck. Okay, and he didn't continue in the real world, but his Tulpa and doppelganger continued. Now the doppelgangers and the Tulpas, the doppelgangers to me are the real life counterparts of the people in the show. It's not really real life. There's a fourth meta level to all this, obviously, because it's still a show. But the Richard and Lindas, Richard and Carrie Page, these are doppelgangers in the real world for the people in the show. And I like the idea, and I don't remember, I think it was, I don't want to credit it because I'm going to forget who it was, but it was one of the people I listed. The idea that Richard is evil Coop. He is now in the Twin Peaks reality, but he was Richard. Okay? Dougie was the Tulpa. Dougie is a manufactured thought form. Okay? Something out of the subconscious, some chunk of the subconscious which is not complete, yet is conjured by the subconscious. Doppelganger is an actual person who's crossed over worlds. So Richard is crossed over when Coop is stuck in the lodge. Buddy's possessed by Bob, so he's evil. But that's why he's evil. Not because he's Richard, but because he's possessed by Bob. Dougie is the Tulpa. Dougie's the wide-eyed innocent, who goes along and just sees what happens. That aspect of Cooper's personality. That's Dougie. In fact, it's more obvious when we see Dougie as Dougie, not Agent Cooper. But that's what the Tulpas are. And Diane's Tulpa was an angry person. She was filled with anger and resentment from the rape. And the evil Coop / Richard rape. And she's stuck too. And so she has a Tulpa who's angry and resentful. But she also has a doppelganger who we see in, I think it's episode 18, when they're at the motel. She looks out and sees her doppelganger, Linda. But there's some connection between the worlds. Okay, that's sort of a key point, which I'll come back to. But the lodges represent these unresolved conflicts. It's like a limbo, and it's probably worth. I'm going to get into this a little bit more, but I think some of this is influenced by Kabbalah. I hate to say it, probably not Madonna's Kabbalah, but the actual Kabbalah, mystical, Jewish mysticism. There's some Eastern mysticism as well, obviously, Tulpa being derived from Eastern ideas. But Kabbalah is important too, I think, because there are things in the Tulpas, remind me at least, in Kabbalah, there's things called the Qlippoth. It's like Qlippoth, I think. And these are like husks of people, shells of people. They're spiritually incomplete people. And I think the Tulpas are represent this as well. And a lot of what Kabbalah revolves around, I don't completely understand it, but from what I've read, is like a path towards spiritual completion. And the tree of life in Kabbalah represents this spiritual completion, going through all these sort of, I would say, steps, but they're called the Separith. There's 10 of them, and remember, 10 is the number of completion. I mean, when he said that, I think it was Philip Jeffries said that, I immediately thought of this, the Kabbalah, that when you have these 10 things, you become spiritually complete, but not until then. And maybe that's the significance of the trees, that we see. As the arm is represented as a tree. That's grasping a little bit, but I do feel like there's something there. So, and of course, yeah, because he says, now I'm going to go back to Super Jacob's idea of this being a dream for most of the series of Cooper. The Cooper's the dreamer. Let's see, who's the dreamer? Cooper's the dreamer. He lays out how when Coop is in the lodge, he has his pin, his FBI, or I think it's his FBI pin. Not sure what's on the pin, but he has his pin when comes through in episode 3 and sort of takes Dougie's place. When he gets his sort of suit back, we see he doesn't have the pin. Okay, it's an indication that this isn't, really happening, or really Coop, but it's a dream state. When we see him he doesn't get the pin again unless we see him in the lodge. There he has the pin, because he's in the lodge, he's stuck. The real Cooper's stuck in the lodge the whole time. up until the very end, when Bob is defeated, we see his face appear large on the screen, and then he goes through the door, um, to the convenience store, and comes out. Then he has the pin. He's finally been able to leave the lodge after all this time. And perhaps he doesn't know how much time, which might indicate why he's asking at the end, what year is it? Um, so, so, this is the whole doppelganger thing. Is shown too in this. When he comes out, and I think Diane asks him, "Is it you?" Because it could be Richard. There's a doppelganger there too, but he's been killed now. But I think she wants to make sure it's the real Cooper. Now, just to sort of take a little crossover. Audrey. A lot of people were saying, what happened to Audrey? What happened to Audrey? We didn't get any answers on Audrey. I kind of think we did get answers on Audrey. I think it was pretty clear that Audrey was in a mental hospital suffering from, under some kind of therapy, her story, whatever it was, and that was pretty much resolved. It wasn't entirely clear, but I think he made it as clear as he's ever gonna make it with that final shot. And here's the interesting thing to me about that. Sort of realized that the Roadhouse is, and I'm not sure what to call it, but the Roadhouse is some kind of place where the worlds meet. Okay? All three worlds, at least, maybe there's more than three, can be there, can coexist. Okay, so, this goes back to the real world theory, too. This is the first time in Twin Peaks history when actual events from the real world and people are placed into the Twin Peaks universe. Well, what's going on? Twin Peaks was a self-contained world. I mean, think very deliberately. Originally, there was nothing that leaked. You didn't even know what year it was. Everybody used to comment, geez, it looks like they're dressed from the 50s or something, and it sort of existed out of time and out of our place. Well, what's this going on with all these bands, Au Revoir Simone and Nine Inch Nails and ZZ Top, like, what's going on? All these real things start popping up. Well, again, this is where the real is. He's trying to tell us the real world is impinging on this too. That it's all this is running parallel, and here's where these things come together. And it's where Audrey finally snaps out of it. Wherever she's stuck. Seeing, all the worlds. You've got the Twin Peaks people coming in there. You've got people from Audrey's dream or Audrey's, let's just call it a dream. You've got people in the real world. You've got the lodge entities. You've got the giant who's been there. So, that's where everything can. And if you noticed, I always notice. It's called the Roadhouse dance. All the people would dance to the songs. Usually when they were slower, and they would just kind of go back and forth like this. It got to be funny after a certain point, but there was a kind of trance-like quality to that. I think that's telling us something about what this place is. It's a real roadhouse, but it's also something else. I think someone pointed out that sometimes they film the sign straight on, and sometimes they film the sign in a puddle of water below, reflected. You know, multiple realities. Um, so, you know, we know what Laura is struggling with, and I think people have to remember that when they call this the thing that comes in the experiment, the mother. Okay, I'm not sure who started calling it that. I'm assuming it was in the show because I don't think people just started that outside the show. If they did, then this is making a leap, but I think the point is still the same. Yes, it's exactly what it is. It's the mother. Well, who's the mother? Sarah Palmer is the mother. Sarah Palmer is Judy, right? People talk about she's possessed by Judy, but that was the same problem of saying that Leland was possessed by Bob. It's not really what he's getting at, I don't think. I think that what Sarah has inside her is guilt and rage and grief all combined. And it's the worst thing in the world. She allowed her daughter to be molested. On some level, she knew. She didn't do anything about it. Her daughter was killed because of it. She feels guilty about that. She should have done something. And she's lost her daughter. What could be worse? They say it's the greatest, dark force in the world. Yes, of course. There could be nothing worse. That's what's inside her. To a certain extent, you hear her moaning in that last scene. It was so spooky. She comes out and she stabs Laura's picture. Well, she wants, to a certain extent, you can say, well, it's Judy stopping Cooper from saving Laura. But it may also be just, it's the rage of, leave me alone. I cannot take it anymore. This grief. It's been eating me alive for 25 years or however many years, whatever year we're in. And I want it to stop. And that's what we see. You can imagine an actual mother doing that. Of course, feeling horrible about it afterwards, but being driven to that kind of, almost madness. So, the mother, that's what a lot of this is about. And again, there's the movie, The Little Girl Who Lived Down the Lane, about a young girl who poisons her mother. It's a very good movie, by the way, with Jodie Foster and Martin Sheen. Definitely recommend it. But I think it was made for TV back in the 70s, but I saw it, back then, and have seen it again, and it really does hold up. It's actually pretty good. But that was the first thing I thought of when Audrey said it. It's the story of the little girl who lived down the lane, and the arm says it again. This is why Laura's stuck in the lodge, even though she's dead, and why she shouldn't be saved. Because she has an issue with her mother still. And she's, I think, you wonder what she whispered. We're never going to know what she whispered to Coop. One of the things could be I'm better off dead. Leave me alone. Let me die. Because he's on this quest that he cannot stop trying to save her. And I love GameSpot's Vertigo catch. It's right on the money. This guy is obsessed with a woman from his past. He needs to resolve something. It's just the same issue with Cooper. But Laura needs to rest. And in a way, bringing her back, even though she is the doppelganger, Carrie Page. These the worlds leak between. It's not hard and fast lines. And there are reflections, each one to another. And I think what we see at the end is just that. That the doppelganger has some of Laura, or some of it leaks in, or has some of the same issues. Maybe they run sort of parallel lives in some way. And then that, maybe she was molested. And when she hears Laura's mother calling her, that terrifies her as well. That brings it all back. Oh, so another thing I wanted to talk about is, why the show is called The Return. I think most simply it's Cooper's return to reality from being stuck in the lodge for so long. I mean, that's the most poignant thing, I think. But there's also, and my wife noticed this, that a lot of the things that happen, especially at the end, seem to be dictated by something that has already been done before. As if they've already been here. As if Cooper's been through this before. Diane's been through this before. They seem to know where they're going. They seem to know, when they get to the motel, Diane sort of asks what happens now, and he knows what happens now. Maybe Diane doesn't remember, but he seems to. He knows that Laura / Carrie is working at the diner. Stops there, he knows. How does he know? He's been there before. He's done this before. We have the infinite loop, remember? It keeps happening and keeps happening. There's a Hindu idea called the eternal return. You keep coming back, or your spirit keeps coming back until it's perfected. Okay, that's what's happening to him. He needs to become, it's his spiritual journey. That's what all this is about, other than Laura's, and Laura's as well. But that's the significance of the word return. The eternal return. It's the Hindu eternal return. And, when he gets to the house, and he goes through and it didn't turn out the way he thought, he's in the street and he seems to be like, let's see, he walks forward like, as I walked up to the door, he reaches out his hand like he's going to ring the doorbell or turn the handle or something like that, and then he asks, what year is this? He's confused because he's gone through the steps he was supposed to, and the wrong thing happened. So, I think a lot of this revolves around that idea. Again, and we're back to Kabbalah too. It's a process of spiritual enlightenment that is being sought, and these are the steps, and you stumble along the way, and maybe it's not even possible to achieve it. But we do get a hint that Dougie seems to achieve it. Dougie is left, or the Tulpa, the new Tulpa, who goes back to Janie E. In Cooper's dream in this scenario, he's with Janie E. and what's his name, Sammy or Sonny, and he finds love, he finds family, he finds caring for others. Before he was focused 100% on his mission. I've got to do this. I've got to make right this wrong. And he's still at the end doing that. But the Tulpa, has found, he sends the Tulpa back to live out that life. But that was that's what brings him out of the sort of Dougie state. Again, he's still not Cooper in real life yet because he doesn't have the pin, but he at least awakens when he finds love. You know, he can now, he re-enters the electric socket through with the fork, because he's found love. That's what has been made clear. Cooper in the outside world hasn't with Linda, right? Richard and Linda. That ain't going to work out. He's on his mission. He's not the same person. He's not what could have been between Cooper and Diane, or Richard and Linda, is not going to be. Because he still has to fix Laura Palmer. But of course you can't fix Laura Palmer. It happened. You can't do it. Leland tells him to find Laura. But Leland's a liar. Right? Leland said, I didn't murder anybody in the lodge. It's the wrong thing to do. He should have let her rest. The Platters, a real group with a person in the band called David Lynch. When they comes into the town, the actual Double R Diner, as it used to look. The one in real life, that's what it looked like. The real woman who owns the house appearing there. He's telling us, that we're now in our reality. And all this is about our reality. These are about real people with real problems. So, that's all I got for now. But I hope that's enough. It's the biggest brain dump I could do. Hopefully I got everything that I wanted to get to. Oh, one last thing. Always wondered about the arm. Never understood, when Mike says, the arm caused me problems or something, that I cut it off. And the arm tells Dougie / Cooper, when Ike the Spike attacks him, take off the hand, take off the hand. The hand with the gun in it. And again, he's got Kabbalah, he's got Eastern Mystic System. Why not a little bit of good old-fashioned, New Testament in there? He's also got, this idea that, remember the proverb, if the right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. Okay, in other words, instead of going to hell completely for sinning, cut off the part of you that has sinned and go on. Okay, that's what Mike did, and that's what with Ike the Spike, he tries to shoot him. He sinned, he tries to shoot Cooper. The arm is telling him, cut off the hand. That did this. And, I thought that was another significant thing. I know it's sort of throwing it in at the end here, but it just sort of popped into my head as that's what, finally, I get a little idea of what this arm is. There's so many other things, but so many other things that I can't explain, but hey, why not? Anyway, that's all I got for now. Hopefully you like this. Anyway, leave some comments if you have any ideas. And hopefully there'll be another next time. Who knows? Bye-bye.